Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 61st and best episode of the Hashcast. And as always, I have a guest way cooler and way more interesting than myself. And tonight, I have a guest who I've seen working in several industries, but I still don't know exactly how he started and where he's going. Jon Finger, how are you, man?
Doing good, dude. How you doing?
Good, I'm good. So we met for like a whole 3 seconds in the middle of an intersection in Los Angeles. So I'm glad we actually get to talk tonight because I have a lot of questions for you. But for people who might not know who you are and who have not had the pleasure of meeting you in the middle of the street, who is Jon Finger and what is it that you do?
I have been an editor and a visual effects artist for a really long time. I'm done some producing as well. Right now I'm a shorts director for my own YouTube channel. And hopefully eventually I'll be a creative enabler and help some of my friends do the same thing. So
I like that term, creative enabler.
Yeah.
I also on your profile that you're a creative addict, which is how I'm naming this show. By the way, it's already floating above your head. Creative addict. So just so you know,
I've got a problem.
Yeah, you got a problem being so damn creative all the time. So how did you get started in this? Because video editing, like I've dabbled in it by trying to put a podcast together, but did you have like old school training in that, or is it something that just happened over time that you got really good at it?
It's sort of a thing that I did because I was directing stuff. I would the first examples were very young, using a old school camera, that my dad had around, and then using VCRs to edit. So I had to like figure out that the VCRs took like 3 seconds to start the next clip. So I was like editing between old broken VCRs. But just doing that process and like learning early premieres and stuff like that, when I got to a point where I was trying to direct for other people, a lot of times they'd be like, oh, well, can you edit too? And I always said yes. And very quickly, people started transitioning, not just editing with the motion graphics and visual effects. People started transitioning to just asking for that because that's needed far more often than someone directing something. So, game companies would be like, oh, can you direct this thing? And I'd be like, yeah, that sounds great. And they're like, actually, we don't really have enough budget. Can you just edit game footage? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. And so it was like that kind of kept happening. And at a certain point, I was helping promote a cinematic game trailer for Unknown Worlds Natural Selection 2. Mm-hmm. And because I was working with them right when I got out of college, because that was like my favorite game at the time. And I called, as the places that I was calling, one of them happened to be Gametrailers, and I just was like, hey, by the way, if you need editors, I'm editing for Gametrailers, so it would be a good fit. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, can you come in tomorrow? And I was like, yeah. So I got a flight and flew down and was editing all weekend for them.
Oh, wow. It's still, like, I'm Dutch, right? So I'm from Netherlands, so flying to a job interview is still a little weird to me. But I guess...
It wasn't even a job interview, dude. No. It was like literally Ryan Stevens said, hey, we got a lot of edits tomorrow and we need another editor. It might have been that weekend. I can't remember. It was way fast, though. It was like 2 days or something at the most.
That is crazy, though. But it feels like you kind of... like jumped forward in time there real quick, or did it just happen that fast? Because you said, I'm editing game trailers, like not for games but actual game trailers. I think a lot of people would have loved to, like, are pushing to get into that. Did it just happen to you overnight, or how did you get that first?
I mean, I'm still pushing to get into game trailers. I would love to do game trailers. No, that whole process started because I reached out to the Unknown Worlds guys as they were starting on Natural Selection 2, and I said, look, I love what you guys are doing, and I just want to come by and film you guys and do it behind the scenes. So I did some behind the scenes videos for them for a while, and at a certain point, I was doing short films myself at the same time, and I was like, I want to do a fan film for Natural Selection 2. And in the process of doing that, they actually let me use some of their assets and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so then they I think that kind of put it in their head that like I could help them with something like that. So I I can't remember exactly if they asked me to direct on that one, but they asked me to help make a cinematic game trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say their creative director, I forget his name now. Amazing dude. I should have looked that up. But anyway, Corey. His name's Corey something. But anyway, try to give credit where credit's due when I can. He did most of the directing on that thing. But it was just an exciting experience to work on something real. And those guys recommended me to other people later. So I got some other little freelance things here and there because of them. But I never actually... The reason I'm interested in production at all is because of cinematics from games and game trailers. Because I grew up without TV, no cable TV, and mostly if I watched something, it was... my dad would rent a bunch of movies from the library. So I'd look through these degraded, barely working VHS tapes. So when I played StarCraft, the trench scene in Brood War was the first thing where I was oh, I want to make something like that. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. And that's actually what took me from just thinking, oh, I want to use this hand camera to make my sister disappear from the frame to I can make something cooler with this,
That is awesome though. I love that hustle there. You're just no, I'm gonna come by and do a behind the scenes for this amazing game that I happen to like, and they're yeah, sure, that sounds amazing. It's those little windows.
It wasn't quite sure, that sounds amazing. I wish it was that easy. Yeah. It definitely took a little easing into it because I think you have to be wary of enthusiastic people that can sometimes come in and be crazy fans or something like that,
That is always good advice.
I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure it was clear I was coming in to be a professional, and that this wasn't I wasn't trying to be in their way in any sort of way. I was trying to make it something mutually beneficial.
That's awesome. So I also want to dip a little bit more in you calling game traders saying, hey, do you need some work? And they're yes, please get on playing, because I have a big heart for game traders. The old outlet. So you said, okay, I'm editing game traders and flying. How long did you stick around with those guys?
Oh man, that's a whole. So that moment was I think I was there for 48 hours or something. Mm-hmm. It was just a quick come in, edit a bunch of stuff. I don't think it was E3 that time, but maybe. But they brought me in after that, freelance. For any time they had an overflow of stuff, they would bring me in. Yeah. And I loved that because my whole time in high school, I watched a ton of game trailers, and I worked at a computer repair company that was sort of connected to Autodesk. And I would just put on all the screens, Gametrailers.com with their cinematic trailers list on autoplay. Yeah. And when they had that feature, and then their new site didn't, which was a bummer.
On their amazing video player that they had on the site.
Yeah, I feel like it got worse. Because before it was I could literally just go cinematic game trailers, turn it on, and it just worked. Because it was QuickTime still, right? So it would play well. The player they upgraded to definitely was a downgrade. Yeah.
But so you're getting in there. Did you feel this might be something I'm comfortable doing for a living? Or was that just because freelance life is... rough, right? It's job after job, gig after gig.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part about freelance life is the Russian roulette of clients. Of you don't know. I had a client I ended up having to hold some of his project hostage in order for him to pay, because he started doing the sketchy thing where he goes, which I had luckily my parents, as far as I can remember, were freelance. So at some point they weren't, but I don't remember that. Yeah. So I had some indication of how freelance worked, and for some reason I was able to see when someone was starting to get sketchy and say the things oh, like they're not yet saying that they don't have money, but
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, things are a little tight. It'll be, we're gonna have to, do this and that or whatever. And
Yeah. Checks in the mail kind of stuff.
yeah, or worse than that even. But yeah, people, especially when you're not working with businesses, individuals can be just, going on Craigslist is a sketchy place to find stuff. Once you get into businesses, people start getting a little more accountable, but you can still find people that'll take way too long to pay you and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think the Gametrailers thing was exciting, especially at that time, because for some reason I thought I could see a future where that led to doing actual game trailers. And I actually stopped freelancing for game trailers and went to work for an ad agency for a while. And that was it was neat to be doing, like, because I was the only editor and visual effects guy in the company. So they would hire out when there was overflow, but I was just I'd be doing, a couple car dealerships in a day and then jump straight into like some exercise video game and then jumping to some beer commercial, like all over the place.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, we need CG ornaments in this, hallway and whatever. And it's like, so that was a wild job. And I was hoping that was going to lead, because they did have game clients, I was hoping that was going to lead into doing the type of game stuff that I wanted there. And I kind of saw that the type of stuff that they were doing for games, I wasn't just not the version of game trailers I was excited by. It was more about the marketing of it than the world building of it. And also that job, just there was no such thing as hours. Like they would call me on Sunday and be like, hey, we need this file in a few minutes, and I'd be like, I'm down at the beach. So I kind of realized if I wanted to have a life, I needed to switch what I was doing. And I did, I loved the guys at Game Trailers, and did see possibility that could somehow lead to the Game Trailers life. So I basically just called Bobby one day there, who's an amazing guy, and was like, hey, do you guys need someone basically permanently? Because I would love to leave what I'm doing and come hang out with you guys. And they brought me in and we had a talk. And actually the talk that I had with Shane at the time was that I was hoping to do original content and like actually make stuff, not just be an editor. And that didn't really work out, partially I think because that Game Trailers was in a very sudden transition, I think, from being a thing that was valuable to Viacom to a thing that was less valuable to Viacom. And that just kind of unfortunately felt like it got worse. Actually, no, it objectively got worse over time. But I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff that was happening there, and I feel like even though it didn't work out for me, that I didn't get to turn that experience into what I wanted to turn it into, which probably was unrealistic anyway. A lot of the people that I was working with there were able to turn it into stuff, Ian and Elise and Elise Willems and Ian Hink, who are, actually I say Ian Hink, but all of Easy Allies came from there. And Justin Angelmo, who made Hey Ash, What You Playin'? I don't know, did you ever watch that? I think he already was making that before he came into Game Trailers, and actually was brought in because they were already licensing his show, and then he was like, hey, can I get some side editing gig too, so so, and that's how I guess that kind of leads into Seedlings. That's how Ian, Justin, and I became friends there, partially because we're all three people that, I was just making weird little things, just experiments and shorts and stuff. Justin was doing Hey Ash, and actually had was just starting another project. Was he starting that project yet? No, he wasn't. Never mind. And then Ian actually had this, I think it's called Hitmanning short series that I think it's still on YouTube. You can probably look it up.
Okay.
But it was just, it was a longer narrative series that had some interesting stuff happening, and it was exciting to like be talking to other people that were interested in making things,
Yeah.
So we ended up kind of meeting one day and after work, and partially actually I had been talking to Ian and Justin sort of separately just because I was looking for collaborators. And then my intention was to talk to Justin because I had just done a Minecraft animation. I had just seen that Justin had done a Minecraft thing with Hey Ash, What You Playing? And I was like, this is an amazing situation for world building. You can just make whatever because we can run around, play a game, and build any set we want, and not Minecraft to us was not the show. It was just the tool to be able to quickly make a show. But Justin's actually the one that mentioned to Ian that we were going to do something, and I'm really glad because Ian is like, that show definitely would not have been what it was because Ian brought so much, like, I feel like he filled out a lot of expanse of that world that we were doing. And also, like, I think Justin and I would have made something, but I don't think it would have turned into what it turned into because Ian was the one that, like, first couple sentences he said were just, like, awesome, just, like, blow the doors off, like, make this thing big. And then all of us just went crazy. I think that first night we just sat and ate and like wrote, which the people that are Seedlings fans are gonna hate hearing this, but we wrote basically the first 3 seasons that night, like, not obviously all the scripts, but the larger arc, and we never did the 3rd season, so there's that. You
gotta get some Seedling hate over this.
And I do. We'll go into that later, but there's a whole reason that all went down. But so, and then we were just gonna make that show without anyone, just post it on YouTube, and then Jeff actually had just come in to the company, and he was making some big moves, and like
Jeff Keighley, I'm assuming.
Jeff Keighley. Sorry, and Rohan and I had actually just done a project, and sort of a funny, Rohan had said, "Oh, there's this super talented dude that's funny that we should bring into the project, Kyle." And I was like, I've never heard Kyle, do anything in particular. Like, he's just a really nice guy. I don't know that. And he's like, no, we should shoot something with him. And so we shot this little test video, and Jeff loved it and actually got us to, I think me and Rohan got to go pitch a couple things, but we pitched Comedy Central with it to do like a gaming show on Comedy Central. And they didn't really get it, which, looking back on it, I get why they didn't get it. But at the time, we were just like, so excited and then so bummed. But then to see Kyle, go on and do his show was
Final
cool.
Bossman.
Final Bossman. And, doing kind of with our project, then we were like, we're doing this show on our own, and Jeff comes to us and says, I can't remember who he talked to. He might have talked to Ian, but anyway, he talked to someone and was like, "Hey, can we? I hear you're doing a show. Can we get your show?" And so then they ended up licensing our show, and that went for 2 seasons on Xbox on their Xbox app, and like just carried that app. It was I think we got like 12 million views on there.
That's nuts.
And then we actually got approached by 2 executive producers who are people from I can't remember what their resume was exactly, but it was like they had worked in most of the major, studios, and they said, "Hey, we want to shop you around."
Yeah.
And Nickelodeon, a couple places seemed kind of interested. Nickelodeon, I can't remember if they offered. I think they sounded like they were wanting it in the room. I don't think they actually gave us an offer in the room, but we had the offer the next day for Nickelodeon. And the woman we were talking to was like the perfect woman to be talking to. It was, what's her last name? Jenna. She works at Netflix now. But then there was a lot of like Nickelodeon was changing a lot at the time. So we kind of stepped into like this whirlwind of stuff happening there, and then Netflix offered us $75,000 to develop for them.
Yeah.
And that was, we were like, yeah, we'll take it. Like this sounds like we can do this, and we can do it like, we could just start doing something right now. There's not going to be figuring things out. And that piece was exciting, but I think my biggest lesson on that was I wish we had kept our scrappiness a little bit, because we did this whole development process in the way that these executives who were like, they knew their stuff, but they also knew their stuff in this sort of old production way. So we hired like, a creative team and an animation team, and we brought in some writers. I forget Bart's last name, but Joe Ansalabaher, which made he did Rugrats and Recess and Hey Arnold and what else? Like that kind of stuff. He's lead writer or showrunner on most of the shows a lot of kids remember from, and so but not that I regret any of that. It's all amazing stuff that we did. But as far as what we came out with a show Bible. Yeah. And in hindsight, I think about like $75,000. If we had just done the things the way we probably would have done if we didn't have any leadership, we would have made an episode for that. Yeah. So that was and then if we had then walking around and shopping around our show after that, because we didn't get the green light from them, and I don't know if they still are, but at the time they were basically no notes. So they came in, they said, okay, this is we did our pitch, and they're like, okay, we don't want to go with it, and it's like they didn't say it in the room, but I think they they got back to us and they said we don't want to go with it, and our producers were like, what's the deal? And they're like, oh, we're not giving notes. There was some indication that it might be that the new version of the show wasn't Minecrafty enough, which honestly I'm really okay with that, because I didn't want to make, I think the other guys were kind of on the same page. We didn't want the show to be about Minecraft. We wanted it to be about the lore. Yeah. And that's part of the reason that we signed up, or not signed up, but that's why we were so excited with the Nickelodeon deal, is because Jenna had, I believe, executive produced The Last Airbender, and she seemed to really get what we were going for as far as the longer story. So that was just I feel like we went the way that we thought made sense at the time, and I didn't want to focus on Minecraft, basically.
Well, it makes sense, because this was 2013, 2014, maybe.
Oh man, I'm terrible with time flies. I don't know.
Yeah,
something like that.
I think
maybe.
Seedlings was around 2013, so this is like early Netflix. This is like 6 years ago.
They, in the process of making the show, they did some big buys actually. Yeah. I think they brought on a couple new kids shows before we finished development, so that probably had an impact on whether we got the green light or not.
But it's such an interesting story because like I was looking at the Seedlings listings there, and I was like, hey, what happened there? Because I never heard the full story. I've heard you guys talk about it on the one of the shows that you guys probably did, the Gametrailers, or you and Ian talked about. I had Ian on the show. We didn't talk much about Seedlings, but I didn't know how much adventure was behind. That whole ordeal. How did it feel though when you're working on something and all of a sudden you got like executives and Netflix and as a creative addict, as you call yourself, to land on something like, oh shit, this might actually take off?
I will say that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Is that one? It felt very natural. Like it didn't. It's one of those things where you think, if that happened to me, I would be so excited and the world would be. But the way it happened is so incremental that by the time... We definitely had some moments where Ian and Justin and I were sitting in a room waiting for like Disney executives to come in. We should probably like appreciate that this is a pretty amazing moment that we're having, you know. So like we definitely had to remind ourselves, only because you're just... Every step, it's not like any of this happened quickly. It's like whether you're gonna, have just the meeting with the executives to begin with. It was like, okay, we're gonna have this meeting, and we had a loose conversation about what could be the bigger version of this, and then we meet with some lawyers to have a conversation. Then the lawyers' conversation takes forever, and then it's like then you have. Some meeting with someone that we're like, oh, we have to look up who this person is. And then we, a couple of those kind of meetings. And then we're like, oh, we might get something with Nickelodeon, and then that doesn't really happen. And then suddenly it is happening. And it's like the way it happens feels like just so natural progression that in the moment you almost don't realize even how much it's like. A lot of people come here. In fact, we would come here dreaming about it if not for being in the slow process. But the thing is we spent 3 years doing a lot of waiting, a lot of sitting in meetings, a lot of listening to input and reevaluating, and like just like this process took a long time, and that was something that walking out of it, I was like, I don't want that to be what my version of being a creative is. I would rather do small things and always be making something than be sitting in meetings and waiting for things to find out if they're the next thing. And you can do both. But my priority is definitely the continuing to create.
Yeah. Good, because that must be... Did you have support to do that whole business side of it? Because it's one thing to be creative and to be really good at that, and then there's the whole corporate suit aspect of creating around it, or is that something you're also naturally good at? Like, I would not be super comfortable go in a room with lawyers and talk about a show that I create or might create.
I was very comfortable with all that. I don't know, I've always been very comfortable with that, but I also think that it does help to have a team, Ian and Justin were we kind of became a little family with the drama and the good parts, we as far as the creative, we would like get in our little bicker matches or whatever, but when it came down to the business side, it was just, we were so good. I actually am surprised that it was amazing as three people that really didn't know each other that well before this thing, just the amount we were able to get on the same page. And we had a Slack going where it was just like, what is our opinion on this, and it was like, we kind of were operating as one mind, and it was really an amazing feeling to just be like, and we go into a situation, we all know what page we're on. We get someone wants to be on a call with us, and we feel like someone is trying to trick us or trying to slight us on something, and we all know where we stand and what the problem is and how we plan on dealing with it, And that part was the most efficient and amazing part of that whole thing was just the collaboration and being business guys together,
Yeah. It sounds pretty cool. Like I really enjoyed hearing this story, like the behind the scenes story, because if you do not get the story, if you do not get the opportunity to talk to you or Ian or Justin, it's like a show that was there and then was gone, and it had some promise if you really paid attention to it that it might go big, and then it just doesn't happen. Do you miss it at all? Do you
I think it's weird. I have back and forth on this, but I don't. There's aspects I miss on it. I don't miss it really because, one, we were always fighting against Minecraft. I feel like, or at least I was, because there's just this expectation that people, or idea of what the show is, that gets put on the thing. And then I think having 3 cooks in the kitchen just made it so that there was, like, if there was a hierarchy, if one of us had been the kind of the final say on stuff, I think that would have kept the intensity of some of our frustration with things down a little bit, maybe. But and none of it, like, it's not like any of it was a big deal. It all was very quick. We would get in some frustration about the thing, and that's the one thing about having 3 people, though, is that when 2 people don't agree, there's always that third person that
has to pick
makes
a side,
the deciding. Which that part actually is why those conversations. And the good thing is that all of us were willing to say, okay, it's 2 against 1. I made my bid, and it's clearly no one's purchasing what I'm selling. So, so that part had its ups and downs. The thing actually that I like is that we were creatively very different from the start of what we would like to make ourselves. And I think that was just an amazing amount of growth that came out of that, because the way I look at projects now changed because both Ian and Justin, changed how I look at comedy. They changed how I look at story. I honestly had very little interest in longer form projects or doing narrative or doing series. And those guys made it exciting and showed me, like, I liked world building, and I would be excited about building out just all these little pieces and what they meant to this character and what they meant to the world and what the depth of that any given moment is. But just talking with them and us all getting excited about how these pieces interweave and connect on the long term, and what they can mean for character and what they can mean for comedy and all this stuff, that just, like, really kind of opened. And especially as someone that didn't grow up with TV, and they introduced me to The Last Airbender because of this, and that was, like, changed how I look at cartoons too, because I was like, wow, this can be, an epic story and a narrative that goes through a full arc and isn't just like every show has to stand on its own, So
no, it's interesting. It's a pretty cool story. And I know you had your hand in, like, a whole bunch of that stuff, but I never heard the full version, so that's pretty awesome. So then that kind of falls apart. Gametrailers, I'm not sure what the timeline on that is exactly, but ceases to exist, or was there still time between the end of that and?
Gametrailers fell apart before we were done with the Seedlings stuff, because I was part of the first wave of layoffs. Most people that were behind the scenes and weren't on camera just got cut. And then my favorite thing was Michael Pachter, sorry. Because I worked on his show. And then Rohan obviously was the producer, Rohan Rivas, who's now at Epic, I think.
Yes.
So that us all getting dropped, Pachter was like, I'm not coming with Gametrailers. I'm not going over to Defy because my friends got cut off. And it's like, that was a cool moment, because I I mean, I barely knew Pactor. We just interacted literally through, like, sometimes he would talk to me through the footage, and that's the, Rohan told him that I was the guy doing the graphics, and he thought Finger is a funny name, because most people do, So, that was, which, it may be more that he did it, because of Rohan than me, who knows, but his icon's still a drawing I drew, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, yeah.
His Twitter.
Yeah. That's the painting, like that
yeah. That was like some random gag, and I don't know why he loved that painting, but one time I was talking to him at his party, and he goes, "Hey, can you paint me like a real version of that painting?" I'm like, "I'm not a painter."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I know, but I mean, just make me a painting of that." And I just... Oh, and I at first I didn't know what he was even talking about. I was like, "What painting are you talking about?" He's like, "The good one." I'm like, "Wait, what are we talking about?" It's a cartoon from like a 5-second gag, and I have no... Oh, actually, I do remember. I've never thought about it for this long. The joke was that he always wears pink ties, and I think his wife doesn't like that he wears pink ties all the time, or thinks he should switch it up, or something like that. And I don't know why the Screamer was involved. I think I just thought it was funny. I have no idea. So, anyway.
Yeah, that's funny, because when I hear you talk, you like I made a joke about it in your guest card. Like, you seem to know everybody, because that whole crew seems to have spread out over the industry quite a bit. So how are your opportunities there? Because I know you're doing stuff for yourself now on your YouTube channel. I was browsing through that. I saw your Dude on Mars recently.
Thank you.
But what are your goals to move through this industry? Because it's like content creation. It's on and off. It's outlets starting, outlets closing, patrons popping up, doing very well, and then people getting burnt out from being content creators. What is your plan in this whole thing?
Honestly, I've kind of stopped worrying about chasing, because I now see that I can make stuff on my own. I've got sponsors now that are helping me with my YouTube channel. I haven't quite figured out how to make the YouTube channel pay for every part of my life, but I can cover most short films and stuff now. And I probably will put some effort behind Patreon. I just started one, and now I'm trying to figure out how to make that appealing to people. That's sort of... I'm more interested in just keeping myself able to keep creating the way I want to. And like I said, eventually I would like to... I have friends who are doing amazing stuff out there that I also know would like to still do some stuff that doesn't fit with what they are being successful in. And I would love to be able to literally pay my friends to do whatever they want. That would be such a cool thing to be able to do. So that's kind of my focus. The Gametrailers thing, I've just been chasing for so long, and for some reason have just been staying on the outskirts of it this entire time. That I'm not that worried about it right now. I think there's probably going to be a point where I am... Hopefully I get it to a point where I'm have enough production pipeline in place that it makes sense to do some big bidding rush on trying to do some game trailers for people. But if anyone here is, if you're out there, give me a call. But
definitely do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it, but I'm just not chasing it anymore. I'm getting the fulfillment that I was wanting from that in getting to like explore a world, and that's what's exciting to me, is exploring the world.
I've seen some of your videos. It's because I posted on the Evolve Twitter a thread, like a shows on a piece of content that you're proud of, and I saw that you posted to the one with the dragon and the one in space. But in case you haven't seen it, I'll try to link it if I'm not forgetting, which I probably will forget. Just ask me about it. What was so special about that video with the dragon? Because I watched it. You were basically spoiling Game of Thrones season 8 in that clip from 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's funny.
But so how why was that a special piece for you?
I got to, one, it was just ridiculous circumstances for what that film is. You know, I'm using my rundown little apartment I had at the time and literally standing out on my porch so that I can be far enough away to film my friend on a green screen. And it was very scrappy, and I feel like the way it came out was pretty cool. And I there's also a lot to that one as far as like my thoughts about it, that it is funny that people do not like that short. No. They are, well, I mean, they get mad at me for what happens in it, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Even Steven got mad at me. He's like, don't remind me of that short. But there's there's the saying, kill your darlings, is if you have something in your world that is the world you're creating, that even though you love it, it isn't good for the world, you still have to cut it out of your writing or your film or whatever. So there's some metaphor in that. And then also there's sort of this aspect of like, just in general, like you play a video game or something like that, people are killing dragons for no reason all the time. You know, they're running through, and I kind of like this piece where it's like, this guy's kind of just being a jerk. He doesn't need to do this, or it's not clear whether he needs to do this, but he's doing it anyway. And it's like, that's how people play video games a lot of times. You know, people run into a house and like smash stuff and take stuff and kill people and whatever. And it's like, I don't know. When I get reactions out of people, I'm like, I don't know, that's good. Get some humanity out of you.
That's good. I like that. And now you're working on Dudes on Mars. I saw the first episode. I highly enjoyed that. Is that more like a series that you're working on, or is that just getting the most out of mocap suit?
There is, by the way, I'm sorry for the audio people. I just realized I'm smacking my lips a lot on this. I think, is that a common thing? I think I watched another one of your podcasts where someone said that. Actually, now that said that. The Dudes on Mars, it's sort of like, I mean, because all of that channel is just, I decide that I want to try something or see something or whatever. With Dudes on Mars, I was like, I want to try to figure out making something that is just super fast. And I don't want to go cartoony with it. I want to try to go fairly realistic with it, but I want to be able to do this in like 24 hours, make an episode. And so I was like, I'm going to try to do something really quick with this. And then on top of that, there was also like, I was like, oh, you know, I'll try adding some other little things just to explore filmmaking. You know, like every episode is, unless it's an establishing shot, every episode is one shot, you know? And so it's just the scene has to play out entirely in blocking, and which is one practice in mocap, because the blocking has to all make sense within the space. And even, you know, at some point I'll probably do some experiments in VR filmmaking. And that's a great way to practice for that, is single, you know, set up camera. And also I just haven't done a lot of comedy on my own. So I was like, I want to try doing some comedy. So, and long term, I'm pretty set that I'm going to try to make another long, you know, narrative adventure. And I'm just trying to get my tools in place to be able to do that efficiently and have as few barriers as possible for that.
Well, is it ripe for collaboration, because you're doing that with someone else? I forgot to write down the name of the other suit. Or is it someone...
The Rococo?
But like it's you doing the one voice and then someone else doing the... Is it just the voice, or is it actually different mocap?
Oh, I do the mocap for everyone.
For both. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering,
I basically just do like an audio edit of, me and my friend Joey, who works at Tested and is a DP and Joey Famelli. He does the other voice, and we just kind of got on Skype and read through lines, and I put together an audio edit, like a radio edit of it, and then I just play that while I'm doing the mocap so that the timing's the same. So the mocap's really like 20 times of me just walking through my living room as each character, you know.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
I saw some behind the scenes at the end there. But it's all...
Yeah, I can't remember which behind the scenes I put on which ones.
I don't know. I saw a couple because I was like stalking all your creativity, and I know I saw one. I think that was just your sizzle reel of you walking like a dinosaur in a mocap suit, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that's the end of your on your Internet Movie Database show reel.
Oh my god, I don't even know what's on that trailer.
Oh,
you know,
there.
I've tried to take that one down so many times, but IMDb won't let you take videos down.
Oh, really?
Because that one's like, you know, that's such old stuff that I don't know why anyone would put a reel on IMDb is what I'm saying. Because if you can't take it down and put up a new one, what's the point?
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, it's still there.
A weird
I think that's the way you walk like dinosaur. Your phone number is on there and everything. Just in case.
Oh yeah, I know. Don't use that number. I totally don't use that number anymore.
I don't know. You're gonna get some deli shop probably if you try to call that number. Are there any like? Because we talked earlier about like you worked with some extremely talented people. You know a lot of very talented people. Are there any like dream collaborations that you would love to do?
It's not really about anyone specific.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just I want to be collaborating with people, and that's so right now I'm just trying to find opportunities. Like if anyone is wanting to collaborate with me, I'll talk to them and we'll see if it makes sense. And I've got a couple different collaborations going right now, and they're all going at kind of different paces because people got different things going in their lives. I'm just kind of experimenting with collaborations and trying to see which ones are the ones that either they're one-offs and it's just getting to work with different types of people and learn from them, or it's someone that I'm like, oh, maybe we might be able to have long-term collaborations or whatever, you know. So, I'm just seeing what's out there.
You can always go to the list of guests on Hashcast and see if there's anyone interesting there that you want to work with.
Yeah, I stopped being super... I tend to be pretty... like, I don't push anyone to collaborate because I found that if I have to make much effort towards a collaboration, there's a very high chance that person's going to drop out or, lose interest or whatever. So I tend to look for people that are pretty enthusiastic. We both have similar things, and they're able to collaborate well. Yeah,
I can't wait. I'm looking forward to whatever it is you're gonna do next. Do you like? I always like to ask. Like we kind of talked about, it's like your 5-year plan because you're focusing really now on your own channel. Do you have set goals for that on? Because you said you started a Patreon. Like it's time for you to hit that 30K a month, obviously.
So far I'm at 0, so
maybe you should promote it every now and then.
Yeah, I haven't done much promotion of it, but I also don't know if it's not at a place where I am. I feel like it's ready to say, yeah, this is really worth people putting their money into. I did do a Patreon once before, and I was just not happy with having. One, I didn't get very many people, but the people that I got, I felt very poorly about what I was giving back to them. One, in how I was, what I had offered, but two, the things that were bigger things I had offered basically required a certain number of people to have joined. And my expectation was a little high since my buddies over at Easy Allies had just hit their 40K in a month or whatever happened. Ridiculous, so I was like, oh, if I can get $500 in a month, then I can do this thing. And so I put that on there, and it's like, I end up with 6 people that have signed up where I'm like, I can't afford to do the thing I'm offering, and I don't want to be in that position. So I'm trying to make it so that my YouTube channel stands on its own and can self-sustain itself. But for instance, the Dudes on Mars, if you... Right now, this is just like a first thing, but if you don't want to watch me blabbing after every single episode, and you don't want to watch ads, and you don't want to have to click between episodes, if you join the Patreon, then you can watch all the episodes just completely edited together as one thing.
Yeah.
I'm also going to try some stuff probably. I just got a VR camera I'm going to do some experiments with, and I'll probably do some stuff where I do a standard version and then the VR versions on Patreon. Stuff like that, where it's like, what's the offer that makes me feel good about saying, hey, you should join this Patreon, you know? And then if I'm at that point where people are wanting to be on it, then it makes more sense for me to start promoting more and grow it, you know? Yeah. As far as 5-year plan, I think the main thing is, you know, I just want to be making, and I want to be around people that are making. Mm-hmm. So if I can get to a point, like, I mean, the ideal is that I'm making something and one of my friends is making whatever the hell they want as well, and I'm able to post both those things, and you know, they're paid and I'm getting to make what I want to make, you know, and whatever. So yeah, I think that's probably what the long-term goal is.
Yeah. And for the devil's question, because I always also like doing that, unfortunately for my guest, if one of the big outlets that a lot of people are calling to me and saying, hey John, we need you to come on board full-time, drop everything you're doing here, is like a very sustainable income every month, would that be something you would say yes to?
I mean, it's everything that I'm doing is about trying to have as little restriction on me continuing to create exciting things. Mm-hmm. Things that are exciting to me, and things that are technologically things that I get to experiment, and things that I get to explore worlds and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So if a company is able to offer stuff like that, then of course that's the YouTube thing is a solution to a problem for me. It's me getting to do this thing. If someone is going to set up that solution right in front of me, then I'm going to jump on board because that sounds great, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's there's so much need for talent out there. It's just someone's going to make the call, like, someone get me John, but it could be like
you never know,
more production than creativity, I suppose. In all the things you've done, like we talked about some pretty big moments with the whole Seedling story, but do you still sometimes think, like, if you look back at the kid who was using 2 VCRs to edit stuff together, and now look at all the things you've done, that you're like, oh, I can't believe that was my path, or that actually happened to me?
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that path is there's so much narrative out there on what those kind of paths look like. Mm-hmm. And the path I've had doesn't look like any of those. No. And it's not, I don't have, like, even when you asked me about this podcast, I definitely had some reservations, because I'm like, I don't have the punchline that the Hollywood movie punchline of, and then I was making exactly what I was, whatever. Yeah. There's no like, and everything was resolved at the end. No. And I've been doing a lot of things very close to what I want to do for a long time, and never quite doing the type of stuff I want to do. And only because I just said, forget it, I'm just going to spend what money I've saved up and try YouTube, have I been able to find that. Yeah. And I definitely am using YouTube wrong. I mean, as far as, like, if you're a smart businessman and saying, like, I want to make the most fiscally intelligent thing, is like, the fast and repeatable content that is very long form and has whatever the stuff that the algorithm loves. Yeah. Right. And of course I want to try to figure out how to make the stuff I make that work with the algorithm, but I'm also not going to sacrifice the reason I'm here to begin with, Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And credit to myself, I do know how to pick my guests because I do know an interesting story when I hear it. But often I only hear like a little bit of the story, like okay, I think there's something here. I should talk to this person for an hour and see what comes out of it. So I really enjoyed hearing your background because I think a lot of people have seen your work or know of your work, but might not have seen the face behind it because, like I said. On camera are the people who get the spotlight, and like Ian Hink is very well known because he was on camera all the time, but the whole Seedling thing was 3 people, right? So I enjoy hearing those stories as well because nobody should forget the work of Jon Finger in the background.
Thank you.
So what are you working on? Are you working on something exciting that you maybe cannot talk about, or something that we should be looking forward to?
I have a project I've been working on for a long time. That's you can actually see. I can't see what you can see, but there's some masks back there from the project. I'm doing a sci-fi project that was a bigger endeavor. That's literally rendering right now. I actually probably should have stopped that for this recording. But that's. I've got a bunch of I've got like 3 things that are in motion right now besides that one. That one's just been in motion for a long time, and I'm not sure when that one's going to finish. I'm hoping in the next month or so, but it's hard to say. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I have like a watch for this specific thing.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll get to that eventually. When you have big news, I'll definitely share it for you. So like we've talked about the whole thing, and you said like you don't have the Hollywood thing, but I think you're still in a place where you do what you want to do. I think in the industry, especially in the gaming industry, and probably in the movie industry as well, there's a lot of people trying to get to that point, doing what they want to do. It can sustain itself. And like I said, people can probably not replicate your path to where you've been because there's too many branches and too many coincidences maybe.
Sure, but you can skip a bunch of that.
Yeah, well, there you go. So what would be like your one tip, your one piece of advice to someone listening, thinking like, oh man, I want to do this as well, but I just can't get off the ground?
I would say the thing that I see a lot now is just how much there is tools for creatives to cut out the middleman. And those may not be the most profitable tools for everyone, but there is a potential there. So YouTube's a great example of, before YouTube there was not an easy way for a creative person to get their media out there in that kind of way. And now you can put something out, and for years after that, it can continue to get views and and you can suddenly get a spike a year later for who knows why it got posted on some random website. That happens with whatever, and then, but regardless of what creative aspiration you have, I'm pretty sure there's something out there for you. There's ways to self-publish music, self-publish. Even I was just talking to a cartoonist or an artist on Twitter who was frustrated that someone was asking her for her to do can't remember, a children's book for $15, right? Because that's how the internet likes to go. Like, artists aren't worth anything. And I'm like, if you're gonna get paid $15 to do a children's book, why don't you just make your own children's book, and you can publish that for free on Amazon, and they'll print on demand and send it out for you, and you don't have to sell that many copies for that to actually make more than this dude that's offering you $15 for him to make a profit, so that kind of stuff I really I'm excited when I see that artists are finding ways to just make what they want to make and connect directly to their audience, and finding ways to also be sustainable with that, because that's the hardest part, is when you're being an artist just to be free and creative, the sustainability is difficult, obviously.
Well, I think that those are words of wisdom right there. So that's pretty cool. Well, thank you so much for that. I always kind of end the show on podcast is shill. We kind of already talked about what's coming up. And you say you don't have anything to shill for, but is there anything else you want to promote? So maybe someone else's work or something we should pay attention for too?
Well, I mean, my YouTube channel is the biggest thing for me that right now. That's what everything. Other people's work.
Well, you can shill for yourself. I'm absolutely fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Check out my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And
I will definitely link that in the comments. Yeah.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, Mr. Jon Finger.
Mm-hmm.
No H in John.
Yeah. No H in John. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's on the screen, but for the people who are listening, they might still need to look it up a little bit. So I'll look it up. Well, that's awesome. So I always forget to shill for myself. But you know what? I'm gonna give our mutual friend Steven a shout out because I always make fun of him on the show. But he's been going through some tough time and he just getting his artsy vibes back. So he's a good dude, and maybe I should say it to him every now and then. But I think I tweeted something nice at him today, so he should be good.
Steven's great.
Steven is great. Yeah, he sucks at worms though.
You're going. Calling me out on worms after that 2 worm killing snipe at the end of that last game we played. I was not feeling too bad. I was like, you can have it.
Pretty good. Yeah,
Go Twitter.
For listening, I just started playing worms with these guys, and I'm terrible at it. And John kicked my ass quite a bit. But yeah, we're just gonna pretend it never happened. So John, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed it, and I think you have a great story. And don't let anyone ever tell you anything else. And we'll hopefully get to hang out soon. Maybe next year when I'm in LA, we'll actually spend some time together because we just managed to walk past each other for the entire show, I think.
The funniest part of that is we were constantly having conversations about when we were gonna meet up with you, and it kept almost happening and didn't happen.
Yeah.
And also when we were standing across the street, Steven and I were talking and we're like, "Oh, there's Wout. We should say hi." And then we were like, what do we do though? Because we're gonna meet him in the middle. Do we just like say, "Hey, we'll see you later," or what? And then it was like exactly as awkward as like our conversation trying to figure out what to do. And we both had places we were going.
I had to run out because I had to buy a set of speakers for our booth because we didn't have audio. So I had to make the run in LA in like 45,000 degrees in a black t-shirt. It was kind of gross, but
well, and you ended up meeting with Ian the next day, right?
Yes, we had lunch.
Because for some reason I can't remember why I didn't come. Oh, because you guys were in the convention. I wasn't coming in. That's right.
That's what it was. Next time, and he couldn't leave because he also didn't have the proper badge, and he's like, it's a nightmare for me to go in and out. So next year we'll do everything the right way. For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, if you're still listening, this is very much on brand for me that I do not know how to close a show, but I am the Hashtagonist, and this is the Hashcast with cool guests every week. So again, John, thanks for coming in, and everybody listening, thanks for listening, and we'll be back again next week with a mystery guest that I've been trying to lock in for weeks now. So hopefully she'll be there next week. Have a good one.